Good evening and welcome to the September 3rd meeting of the Rockland Select Board. Please be advised that this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded for playback by WRPS at youtube.com/WRPS Rockland. Please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. Please also be advised that the open meeting law gives the chair of a public body discretion to decide if public comment will be permitted, but the law does not require that a public body allow public comment or public participation during its meetings. Chief Duffy, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is community announcements. Doug, do we have any community announcements?
Nope, I do not have any tonight. Thank you.
Next are the minutes.
I do have a question on this. It's listing me as being a remote, participating remotely, but I was only here for like the last 5 minutes of the meeting. So, but I'm just wondering if the minutes should be adjusted, because it appears, if you just were to read these minutes, that I took place and voted on all these things, which I didn't.
Right.
Yeah, so we could say like executive session, remote,
that's
something
fine.
like that.
So I'll make a motion to remove John from via remote for that portion of the meeting and just put executive session in.
Do I have a second?
That's fine.
All those in favor? And do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
I abstain.
New business. We have a 7 p.m. public hearing in wine and malt beverages common victual license for the Space Bistro, 323 Union Street. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Select Person O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Select Person Ellard.
Yes.
Vice Chair Giles.
Yep.
Select Person Shortle.
Yes.
And myself, yes. Is there anyone here from Space Bistro? Please come on up to the table. Hello and welcome. If you could please introduce yourselves to us.
My name is Ezequiel Lacerda.
And hello.
Hello, my name is Rafaela Rojas.
Nice to see both of you again. Now, I understand you've submitted all of your paperwork and all of this is in order. Okay. And right now, you're going for the motion to approve your wine and malt beverage common victual license. Anyone in the select board have any questions or comments?
I have a comment. I've eaten at your restaurant and it's spectacular. And and I'm like a sushi snob and the sushi is really, really good, so. But a lot of people in town are kind of meat and potatoes, so what do you serve that's meat and potatoes?
We have more than sushi.
Correct, yeah.
We have a meat, we have one kind of Brazilian plate, picanha, we have some Italian pasta or Italian risotto with filet, that's very good.
Yeah, I hear nothing but good things about it, so I hope it's very successful in town. That's it.
Glad you're here.
Yeah.
Okay. I've also visited your restaurant and even the decor is absolutely beautiful. I can see all the work that you've done. Do we have any other questions? May I have a motion to, do we have any public comments or questions? Okay, with that, may I have a motion to approve the wine and malt beverage common?
Close the public hearing first. Yep. You're
I'm
good.
sorry, I'm still getting it down.
I was taking notes.
Yeah.
May I have a motion to close our public
Motion to
hearing?
close public hearing.
Second.
Let's have a roll call vote. Select Person O'Laughlin.
Yep.
Select Person Eller?
Yes.
Select Person Shortle?
Yes.
Vice Chair Child?
Yes.
And myself, that's a yes. Okay, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve wine malt beverage common vic license for Space Bistro, 323 Union Street.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Yep. You got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to say one thing as you guys are going, just so you understand, when the board just approved it, so you're all set with the town, but now we send that to the state, the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission, and it could take the state a few months until your license is approved. So you can't serve alcohol yet. You need to wait for that state license to come back. So we'll take care of submitting the information from here, but I just want you to know to wait for the state.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank
You very much. Good luck.
Okay.
Next, we have the revised fire station building project presentation. We have Chief Duffy. If you could please come on up.
And can I do a little intro,
Yes, please.
Tiffany? And I'll get out of the way in just a moment. But as folks are coming up to the mics, I just thought I'd give a brief introduction. As we all remember, and for those in the community that may have forgotten or weren't here, the fire station, the single station that we have at Union Street, is out of date. It's too old, it's too small, the site is too small. So we did a lot of good work over the last few years, and we hired Schwartz Silver Architects along with our building committee, and we proposed a new fire station building project that would be at the former Lincoln School site. That project was tagged at approximately $33.2 million. We proposed it in the form of a debt exclusion last spring, and as we all remember, it failed at the ballot and at town meeting. The feedback that we heard primarily was everybody understands the need for a station. I didn't really hear anybody arguing we don't need one. The concerns really generated from voters that we heard mainly around the cost and the impact that it would have on property taxes, as it would be funded through a debt exclusion. And the biggest feedback we got was to go back, come up with a plan B, come up with something smaller, most importantly, less expensive. So we're going to get into all that tonight, but that's really the impetus for this. Some might say voters already said no, why are we still talking about this? And we're still talking about it because just because it was rejected by voters doesn't mean that the problem got fixed. The problem is still there, and it's only getting more expensive the longer that we wait. So I think you'll be really impressed with the presentation tonight. The architects are going to do most of the talking, but Chief Duffy and I will have a few things to add here and there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Trafficante and Kyle Winston. They'll get it started. I'm going to give you this keyboard, and you can just use the arrow keys to go back and forth.
Okay, thank you, Doug, and thank you all for seeing us. My name is John Trafficante. I'm the principal in charge at Schwartz Silver for this project. I'm here with Kyle Winston. Kyle's the project manager. A couple other people in our firm. You could probably answer. Ethan and Stuart. Some of you may have met them in the past. They've worked on this project as well. We have worked with the chief in the town since 2017 on programming and different studies, site studies and such. This project, what we're showing today is kind of the work that we've done over the last 6 or 8 months, looking at different ways to satisfy the needs of the town in terms of the station. So we've looked at kind of reusing the station. We've looked at adding on to the station, renovating and adding on to the station. We've looked at the Church Street site, looking at other options over there, reducing the square footage over there to kind of what we think is the bare minimum for a functioning fire station for a town this size. And so with that, maybe just say a couple of things. If you all have questions, please feel free to interrupt. We kind of hope this is a discussion we will present, but certainly if you have questions, let us know. Schwartz Silver has been in business since 1980. We've been doing civic work for almost 40 years now, so we understand the predicament of kind of getting buildings built in towns and trying to get the building to be the exact right size and on budget and on time. So, You know, we also have a lot of experience doing fire stations. Our first fire station was done in, gosh, I think it was 1990 maybe, for the town of Wellesley. So we've been doing fire stations for a long time as well. And on this study, we teamed with a firematic expert. I think he made up the word firematic, but it's he's done over maybe 150 fire stations. So we worked with him on programming throughout these studies. So there's you know, we brought in someone even more kind of experienced than we are in fire stations to make sure that what we provide and what we're proposing is actually what is needed by the town. So kind of with that, I think what I would like to do is turn it over to Kyle. Kyle will kind of go through our process, and then certainly, you know, Chief, I know you
Yeah, I'm
pull up
good.
next
Nope,
to me,
yeah.
but
Chief, do you just want to say quickly, mention the committee?
Sure, just, you know, a lot of the work that's been done through this whole process since, you know, just around the 2017 mark has been done by the Fire Station Building Committee. You know, people throughout the town that have given us some great ideas and have helped us. Deputy Chief Tom Heaney is on that. Fire Lieutenant Charlie Williams, who's also a town resident. Retired Deputy Chief Jim Killinger, he's a town resident. Architect Chris DeFilippo, I felt it was important to get Chris's input where he does have a good, strong sense of the architectural business. Another town resident. Jean Blaney and Susan Egan. So Jean and Susan were initially brought into this because we were looking at maybe trying to combine the Rockland Rec with the fire station in one giant building on that Church Street site. It didn't work. We ended up having to kind of split the projects. Jean and Susan have remained on the building committee, you know, which we're very appreciative of. And they bring some great ideas, so, you know, both as residents, so I thank them. And our newest member, Austin Clark. Austin is a college student at Boston College. I met Austin through a fire cadet program through Social Tech. You know, he wants to become involved in local politics, and we felt this was a great foot in the door for him. And first meeting, he's already, you know, coming up with great ideas that we've added into this project, into this presentation. So, you know, we appreciate his input as well. So I thank them. They do a ton of work, and we couldn't do it without them.
I might ask you to speak again in a second, Chief, but I'll just say quickly, I'm Kyle again. We began this whole process going back into the existing station. Going back into the existing station and just sort of comprehensively documenting the deficiencies. So these are just some snapshots from the existing conditions report, which can be provided in full. It's a large PDF. And with the chief, we documented some of the specific conditions visually in photographs. Did you want to speak to some of these?
Sure, and I don't want to bore everybody. You know, I think everybody's heard some of the existing conditions that we suffer through at the fire station. Some of them pictured here. I'll just run across the top row real quick. So, when the fire station was added to in '78, there was no real main entry door. We can watch people on the cameras trying to walk around our station to find where that entry is. It's kind of hidden. That's what that top left picture is. You know, we usually have to kind of go out there and kind of guide them in. Additionally, it's right by an apparatus bay. So as trucks are coming in and out and people are walking in and out, it does create a pretty big hazard for anybody with foot traffic. And you know, a modern fire station, you wouldn't be entering in off the apparatus floor. It should only be firefighters for safety reasons. Picture number 2 on the top row from the left, that's just one of our storage rooms. We keep our breathing cylinders there, spare equipment, our fire alarm equipment for the municipal fire alarm system. And as you can see, we're overflowing the shelves in there. Picture 3 is our downstairs at the back of the fire station. That is kind of off of the seating area where the firefighters kind of congregate and wait for calls and eat lunch, breakfast, sometimes dinner. So you can see their microwave. which is tucked in next to the hazardous chemical cabinets. So must add some good flavoring. That last picture, top right, that just shows the space between the exterior wall. That's looking down the wall towards Union Street along the wall at the library. That's where, we keep our firefighting foam, as well as there's gear lockers, there's hazardous materials response equipment in there to mitigate hazardous materials, and then other gear lockers, firefighting gear lockers. So, this is where the firefighters keep their spare uniforms. You can see a pair of pants there, which are somebody's, gonna put on at some point as a change, that are probably diesel and soot filled already. Bottom left is the bathroom for the executive assistant. We've run out of file storage space, which has overflowed into her bathroom, which I don't think is fair for anybody. Bottom row, picture 2, that is the training meeting area. Much of the stuff there that you see, the screen, the projector, that was all gathered out of the Jefferson School before it was torn down, so that we could be able to hold some training with our own. One of the things that it's in one big massive area, which is including in the upstairs meeting area for the firefighters, the TV room, the kitchen. So it's one big area. So there's we couldn't hold a private training up there, or any training without other background noises being bothersome. Third picture on the bottom row. Third picture is just an old skylight that we have. Just the amount of heat that comes in and the inefficiency of that building. We've taken some homemade remedies to block off that light. It used to be a blue tarp. Now we're using cardboard hazmat boxes and an old radiator that doesn't work anymore. Last picture, bottom right. That's our basement. That is literally all shelving now. It's kind of footpaths to get through. We've just run out of space for storage. Much of that storage is equipment for the new engines when they come in, so we hope to gain some room down there, but a lot of it is required equipment since COVID that we've gathered for isolation and just keeping ourselves safe when we respond. Thank you. Next slide. So this was the big slide that I wanted to show, and show why this fire station doesn't work anymore. Thanks. So currently, right now, this fire truck does not sit in this location. This is one of our older fire trucks that sits on the new side. However, we have two new fire pieces of apparatus on order. These fire trucks aren't getting any smaller, and two new orders are going to have to go on the 1978 side, which leaves our third truck that we currently run now becomes the spare. Well, we're going to have to put that over on the 1938 side. One of really the only spots it can go in, one of two spots, is this spot here. If we have to put it here, you cannot walk from one side of the station to the other. So we completely cut off the station. I don't even know how firefighters would get from the watch room or from the back, little table area that they wait for calls at, to get over to that, to get over to the apparatus. So we're going to have to come up with some ideas. But this I just want to get a sense of how tight this fire station really is with new fire apparatus. It just wasn't constructed for trucks this size.
And
Thank
I
you.
think even in this photo, you can see the door on the right-hand photo. That is the door that the public would have
Correct.
to come in.
Yes.
So the public would have to come in, and they can't get across.
Correct. Yeah, the public couldn't get across if they were to go up to my office or to the deputy's office or to our meeting area.
We've looked at a lot of fire stations over the years, and this, I have to say this, in terms of space, this is one of the most space fire stations that we've ever been involved in. It really, the trucks are pinned in there. The area around the trucks are dangerously close to the wall. If anyone is standing next to a truck as it departs, they're in danger of getting hit by the truck as it leaves the station. So, you know, I hope some of these photos illustrate how serious a condition this is.
And I'll just add, we'll come back to this at the end because the third option of the three we'll present, I should say the third is just an interior renovation of the building. So a lot of these problems will persist, including like the one entrance door, the oversized apparatus, not oversized, but undersized space. So we'll come back to some of those things. But just, so this is all the work we kind of did leading up to the design. And then quickly to share a schedule, unless Doug, you wanted to add to this, or to, yeah, go ahead.
Want to go first?
Sure, no, well, so the work we've done thus far began back in 2017 with programming. Then, of course, last year, the first schematic design proposal, and that ended in February. And then we began this effort in February of this year. And then, so we're now here we are in September. And then beyond the September date are 2 potential paths forward, depending on when a town meeting and town vote would occur.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, so that was, the purpose of this slide was to show that, you know, we've been talking about having a November special town meeting. We're going to have that on the agenda later tonight. I'm anticipating that you're going to vote to call that meeting. And as I put several of those schedules before you in prior meetings, it is possible, if you want to pursue one of these recommended projects, and put it before voters. It is possible to do it at the November special town meeting, but I'm not recommending that, and I think our entire committee is not recommending that either. We think it's really better to wait until the spring town meeting in May. That'll give us more time to do a lot more outreach, hit all the different parts of the community that's interested in this project and engaged. And as you can see from looking at the time frame, so instead of starting in the spring, we're just, you know, starting a few months later in the summer. But I think those extra months will really be valuable to help us get good traction with the community. So that's the purpose of this, is really to show the side. If we did it Springtown meeting, we could be looking at the summer of 28 for having it complete and moved in. Thank you.
So I wanted to interrupt with something. I just wanted to say that the police station was completed like 20 years ago, Chief, is that right?
Yeah, a little more.
A little more than 20 years ago. And no pun intended, but the fire station has been put on the back burner since then. So the needs of a modern fire department with modern life-saving, you know, protocols and stuff like that, we really do need a solution for that. And, you know, with the impending VOTEC vote, it makes it kind of a kerfuffle with that too. So, but I just wanted to say that timing-wise, this has been a long-standing project that we've needed for many, many years. So.
Well, thanks again, Doug. And just to quickly mention, the little bullet points between the orange arrow and the bottom is just all the different phases of the design it would go through. So schematic design development, up through bidding, and then construction starting, and when it would be complete. So we'll start with this slide, which shows kind of where we sort of landed after initial studies with the building committee. We presented 6 different options and developed this. We've been calling it a sort of pros and cons matrix. The green being good, yellow being some drawbacks, red being obviously not good. And we presented this to Doug and the chief, and that was then presented to the fire station building committee, and then they came back to us with then 3 chosen options. And I just want to point out here quickly, so the 2 options on the left are for Church Street, then the 4 options on the right are for Union Street. So maybe just at first glance, Church Street was checking a lot more boxes for us, and a lot of these, the priority is health and safety separations, and the clearances that the chief was just pointing out. And as we went along, you see some of the white boxes in the bottom. As we went along, we got more information from some of our engineers and consultants, which we filled out. So these are the final 3 options, which we'll illustrate in a moment. Church Street on the left, an addition and renovation to Union Street in the middle column, and then a interior renovation to Union Street on the right. The biggest difference I want to point out is the Union Street options will never fully support the full-size apparatus that are needed, as the chief is mentioning. There will always be tight clearances. In the addition, we will get, the one thing we'll emphasize in a moment is we will get a full-size bay, so at least one bay will be able to accommodate the new big truck. So there will always be drawbacks at building on the Union Street site, which is where a lot of those red cells are coming from. So 3 options. On the left, Church Street, the middle, the addition to Union Street, then on the right, the interior renovation at Union Street. And we'll go over the budget summary in a moment, but or the cost estimate summary in a moment, but for total cost of the construction, on the left, working with our cost estimator, came in around 21 million. The middle one came in around 13.3, and on the right came in just about 9.5. So we'll begin at Church Street. So it's really important for us to begin comparing where the previous study left off and where we began. So in the previous study, which I guess February of last year, the total square footage was about 33,000 square feet. And working really carefully with the original programming documents that Bob Mitchell helped put together, and with the chief and Doug, we were really able to squeeze out all the excess and get it down to a really tight a little over 25,000 square feet, which is a reduction of about 22%. Which takes up about a little less than half of the site, the Church Street site, versus almost 2/3. And then other things like reduce the articulation of the building. There's a lot of costs associated with like the skylights of the old one, so we just tried to reduce it and make it simpler. You want to add, John? No. So each option will show a site plan, will show some plans and a couple images. On the site plan, so here we're looking at Church Street on the right, Howard Street on the left, north is to the right. The main objective here, and this is the same as in the old option, was to still the apparatus to pull out onto the main Church Street. Here the entrance is on Howard Street, and what we've done, and which is what's different from the previous option, is the parking lot is now no longer requires a variance. It fits. We're trying to make it fit into the neighborhood. The trees extend from the surrounding landscape, and the setbacks. Again, the building doesn't go into the setbacks.
And creating a buffer between the parking and the rest of the neighborhood, really, and even landscaping the parking, so it becomes a little more sensitive to the site that it's going into. Yeah, I'll show that in a minute in the aerial. In the plans, what we just want to highlight quickly, and this all goes back to the health and safety separations that are really important for kind of contemporary fire station design, is so in this drawing, the 3 colors, the red being what we call hot zone, so everything everywhere the firefighters go with their potentially contaminated equipment. The pink or the purpley color is the in-between zone, transitional warm zones, so vestibules, somewhat transitional storage. Then the blue is all the offices and upstairs living quarters. So the only thing I want to point out, well, in addition to making this a much tighter plan, working with Bob Mitchell, the square footages for each room are as small as they really can be. But one thing we did, we're indicating. And just to say, they're as small as they can be because we actually put the required furniture in each of these rooms and made sure we had clearances around all the furniture. So these rooms are really tested with the actual equipment and furniture that needs to go in each of these rooms.
And yeah, we also like it. I mean, in the sense that it's the rooms they're not like generous, but they're efficient. And the one thing I want to point out as it relates to, Chief mentioned at the beginning, the training area upstairs in the existing station. So on the bottom left of the first floor plan would be the training room, which is within the boundary of where the public could access, and that's on where the red line is indicating. So that would have a public facing component in addition to being for firefighter training. So, and in addition to King Philip being on display, the historic hand tub sled.
So on the left-hand plan at the bottom corner, that area could be the training room, but also
Yeah.
public access room.
This area. And then I should just say quickly, right upstairs is mostly just firefighter living. Bunk rooms where there's physical training. And then, so all of those spaces ring the perimeter, and then all of the sort of back of house spaces, storage, would be in the middle. These two images are of the exterior of the Church Street option, the top being the view from Church Street. So we're looking at 6 new full-size bays with the Rockland sign above. Then the left is the kind of cap to that wing of firematic storage. I'll just go back quickly. On the bottom here is a ring of much-needed storage in addition to a watch room and a ready room, which are the 2 rooms the firefighters will either monitor the activity on the ramp or prepare for or fires. And then above would be the mezzanine area, which is where some of the training happens. And so that's what we're looking at here on the left. Then the bottom is the view from Howard Street, which is where the main entrance would be, where the sign is. And then one thing that was important to the fire station committee was that King Philip be on display. So one thing we kept in all options, or at least one of the first 2 options, was having that visible on Howard Street.
And can you show where that is in the elevation?
Yeah, sure. That would be in this front entrance.
Yeah, and that would be a glassy entry. It's looking very dark in this image, but it would be kind of glass and open to the lobby inside.
And this is a view, an aerial view, so Church Street and Howard Street intersecting, looking at the station. Again, what's really important when we're building in this residential neighborhood is that acknowledging the houses nearby. So we would have some separation between the station and the houses with a fence and a retaining wall. There's a slight slope on the site, in addition to, again, planting the parking lot, so it doesn't. So it fits into the neighborhood. So this is of the old. There's 2 different slides here of the estimates. This is the estimate that we received in 2023 for the old station. So this is for the 33,000 square foot station, which came in at $33 million for 33,000 square feet total cost of construction. We're showing this here because we want to compare if that project were to be built now or built when these other projects are being proposed to build with escalation, that would be closer to 36. So what was then $812 a square foot would now be $880 a square foot. If we compare that to what the station we just showed you, it's closer to 26. So about $10 million less. So that's comparing about $880 a square foot to $811. And then on the right, we've just, in the little column with the green and yellow, that's just an excerpt from that matrix we showed at the beginning, which shows all of the points of comparison for the different options. The middle option, which is the addition to Union Street, again, that one came in around 13.3 for the total cost of construction. No matter how, we tried very hard at the beginning to see what we could fit on that site. As you all know, it's a very tight site right in the middle of town. So the one option that we pursued with an addition wraps around the edge, and it would require taking the site behind it, 1115 Pacific Street, which, I don't know if Doug, if you want to speak to this now, but that would require a much longer conversation.
Yeah, so, this, I think, certainly adds a little something more to the station. As Kyle said, there'd be one bay that could actually accommodate the large apparatus. But the only way to do an addition, we have to comply with zoning, we need parking, et cetera. So there are 1 or 2 multifamily apartment buildings behind there. So there would have to be some sort of taking, if we were going to pursue something like this, like a friendly eminent domain taking. And we can talk more about that if this isn't option you want to pursue, but we did have a rough estimate for what the damages would be, the cost of acquiring that property, because even if you take something by eminent domain, you still have to pay damages. And just by looking at the property record card, it was like close to $1 million in today's dollars. So that's going to add roughly $1 million to the cost of the project, but that is factored into the numbers.
Thanks, Doug. And I'll just add one thing. We tried many options where that wouldn't be the case, but to build on the site, we were required to include parking, and this is what we could fit. And this station, by adding to it, the total square footage just becomes about 22,000. So it'll never be as big as a Church Street site would. And a lot of that difference actually is just in the apparatus bays. So the space around the bays, the living quarters, and the storage is almost the same. It's just the lack of clearances around the bays that make up that difference. This is a site plan of this option, Union Street at the bottom, Pacific Street on the left. The yellow, again, is the addition. So on the right is the 1938 station, the 78 addition, which are bays 4, 5, and 6. And then our new 7th bay, which again would be that full-size bay, would be on the left, and the back would be the front entrance, and a new row of offices right now, which are not accounted for, or upstairs in the gathering space.
But this is actually kind of a good slide to illustrate the difference between the modern standards of an apparatus bay, bay number 7, versus the bays that exist in the current station. You can see how much wider it is because of the truck clearances and the safety needed clearances around the truck, but also the depth of the bay. And that is a minimum depth bay. It's smaller than the bays that we would propose new.
And just like the eminent domain question, this question of clearance or of building in this tight site, which per zoning we're allowed to build to the lot lines, we would want to do a deeper study into making sure that the turning radius could happen, the utilities could be moved as they would be required to move. Because as you all know, there's already a traffic light that stops traffic when the apparatus pulls out. So this would be a very difficult site to work in, but nevertheless, we think something is possible. And then, of course, the parking lot at the top, as mentioned before. So the two plans following the same logic as the others with the 3 colored separation. I'll just point to this. This is that new bay we keep talking about here. So you would pull in here. The back, so this blue in the back is all that new now safely protected office space, which in the existing station obviously isn't. It's right off of the apparatus bay. And then one of the other big differences we're doing, Chief Duffy was showing the basement storage, or the lack of storage and how the basement is full. The basement also currently has the decon laundry where they decontaminate the equipment. So right now that would also be moved to dedicated spaces on the ground floor, which would free up a lot of that space in the basement, which should be next to the apparatus space anyway. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to.
Point out the entrance.
Oh, yes. And the other, like the first option, we have this red line indicating where the public can access. So there's a little public entrance here in the black, and then a separate firefighter entrance, again, just for separation as desired by the firefighters. But, whoops. Here, the public could access the main lobby, which would have King Philip on display, access to an elevator, which would take them upstairs to the training room / community room where meetings like this could happen, in addition to a lobby or a administrative office. And right now, the administrative office is directly off of the apparatus bay, which means the administrative assistant has to walk through the sort of diesel fumes. And this is a view from the corner, Pacific on the left, Union on the right, looking at one version of what that new bay could look like. In this image, we've kind of kept the language of the existing building with the brick and the granite.
One thing just to bring up on this is with this design, while we may gain a larger bay off of Union Street, we lose the back bay off of Pacific Street, which is still utilized during the winter for vehicle storage.
Thanks, Chief. And yeah, you'll see that in the last option we'll show in a moment. And this is just the aerial view of that option with the parking lot in the back. And one thing to point out here, we will never be able to fix also that ramp depth, the depth from the face of the building to the street. So that'll still persist.
Yeah,
If
we still want to be able to fully take our ladder truck out, set it up. Currently, if we want to do any training with the ladder truck, we usually go down to the plaza, down to the Calvary Chapel Plaza. You know, maybe there's a potential that we could set it up at the rear yard, but now we're backing it in between vehicles. So, yeah, we still lose that space out front to do some training.
And this was the estimate for this option. About what came in around 13.3 for the construction cost. That's about a little under $600 a square foot. And then these were, you know, initial percentages to estimate a total cost of construction. Here one thing that's really important to point out is this 1.7 number, which applies to this option and the third option, which is a temporary operations facility, which means, you know, the station is being renovated. We have to build a kind of temporary station elsewhere, which we got priced to be on the Church Street site. That would be, we've done this at Walpole and other stations, which would, it's not, I mean, it's a temporary facility, but it's not small, you know, it's still, so that, the estimate for that was 1.7, and then you'll see that number again for the third option.
And that probably doesn't include the cost of heating it, because they're tents, right? So you have to blow hot air into these things to keep them warm in the winter. So these are costs that you don't get back. You know, you spend the money, you spend $1.7 million, and it's money that you're not getting back in a permanent building ultimately.
Essentially what the temporary facilities would consist of would be a larger tent-like structure for the apparatus, and then trailers for the firefighter living spaces, and then trailers for administration work, you know, to relocate the admin offices.
And then, as Doug mentioned at the beginning, there are two estimate numbers for neighboring the site, the acquisition of the neighboring site, and then the demolition of that site, that's what all adds up to get that roughly $20 million total project cost. Then our third option, which is just the interior renovation of the three. So if the first option was 25,000 square feet, the middle one was about 22, and the third one's obviously the same station it is now, just reconfigured to be to try to be safer, create safe separation. So just a couple notes on the site. We would do necessary repairs around the entrance to the bays, try to preserve as much as we can with the memorial and the tree in the front. The parking is going to remain as it is, and then per the request of the fire station building committee, we've tried to make the back bay, as you'll see in these plans, a usable bay. So that's this bay up here, as opposed to being like part ready room, part storage. In which case, what would happen is this back area would now need to be used for proper apparatus moving or truck moving, so it wouldn't be parking for the firefighters. So in this case, there's no public entrance arrow because there wouldn't be a sort of proper public entrance. What there would be at least a safe public entrance, which is where this black arrow is, which would be adjacent to the admin office. But the main thing we tried to do in this plan was just create safe separation between the spaces. So in this case, the administrative assistant can go to work without having to walk through the fumes of the bays. Upstairs, without getting into it, we just try to be more strategic with how we divide up the offices and give the training room at least its own area. That's this area here, as opposed to, you know, Chief Duffy and the team having to move chairs and, you know, stretch partitions around the room. And then the estimate for that again came in around 9.5 for the construction cost, and then there's obviously the temp ops cost again, the 1.7, which ends up being about 14 for total project cost. And again, the one thing to emphasize with this option is the lack of clearances will persist. We're making it safer with the separations, but it's still the building the 1978 and 1938 building that you have now. This could be looked at maybe better asynchronously, but these are, again, the three options compared, and then the summary of the three.
Thanks, Kyle. So we're almost done. The purpose of this slide is really just to show the cost of delaying and the cost of deferring this, which we've been doing in this community for decades, unfortunately. So you can just see to kind of keep it simple, if you look at the Church Street site, the construction cost, $20.8 million, right? If we wait 10 years, right, we're looking at, an $8 million, $7 million increase. So I won't go through and read all the numbers, but the point is, construction costs escalate significantly. The longer we wait, the more expensive it becomes. We spend more and we're going to get less. So this, again, we need to fund this through a debt exclusion, whichever option we chose, you choose. What this particular chart is showing is in dark green, that's our existing long-term debt. So all of our debt. Phelps School, everything done in the past that we're still paying debt service on. And you can see that it's sloping down to the right, so our debt is declining. What's shown in the lighter green is our recommended option, which is the $26 million Church Street site. So that reflects the debt service for that new project. And this is a very similar graph to what I showed for the last project a year ago, which is if you just look at where we are now and draw that red line over to the right, you'll see that in about 8 years, even with that new debt for a new station added on to the tax bill, because our existing debt is declining, we'll actually be right where we are today. So I know other things go up, Prop 2.5 goes up, there could be other costs that, that affect taxpayers, but just as it relates to residential property tax bill, this shows that, within 8 years, even with this project being approved, we're actually at the same level of debt service, the same cost of taxpayers that we're at today. So I thought that was important to show. And then what I think, this is the last slide, what I think everyone's most interested in is, what could the cost be to the average taxpayer? So the assumptions we used are a 4% interest rate, which according to our financial advisors is a reasonable rate. And I see John shaking his head, which is good. A reasonable rate, given where, when we'd actually be looking at bonding. There's going to be future rate cuts with the Fed, et cetera. So 4% is in line. For this purpose, we can plug in any different kind of assumptions we want, but for sake of simplicity tonight, I just did a 30-year bond, level debt service, not the type of declining debt that you saw before, level debt service, and our current average single-family home is valued at $488,000. So for that average single-family home, the recommended option at Church Street would be a $226 per year tax increase. You can see for the addition and renovation, that goes down to $173 per year, and then $122 per year for just the renovation. So again, just to restate what we talked about a year ago, for anybody watching at home or in the audience, if your home is valued, and again, when I say valued, I don't mean Zillow, I mean the tax valuation from the town assessing department. If your home is valued at $488,000, these numbers are good. If your house is valued at higher than that, your impact will be higher than this by the same proportion. And if your home is currently valued at less than that, your tax impact will be lower than this. But this, again, it's based on the average single-family home value. If you decide to pursue a project and we go forward, we can do a lot more kind of sophisticated analyses like we did last time, but I thought the bottom line was probably what's most helpful for tonight. And that's really all we had. Again, I think that the main point we wanted to communicate was we heard the feedback that we needed to come back with something smaller and less expensive. We heard that. Some of this stuff will still work out fine. Other things are missed opportunities. For example, we had to cut out the mechanics bay. That's really unfortunate because that would actually save us operational money in the long run, but something's got to give. So we tried to be responsive, lower costs, lower square footage as much as we could, while still making it a productive, worthwhile endeavor, and not just building something new for the sake of something new that doesn't really add anything compared to where we're at. Our biggest concerns with the existing site, as Kyle and John and the chief said, is, the site is just too small. And while the addition does give a little bit of relief, taking homes by eminent domain is a big, big deal. And that's something that you'd have to really think long and hard about if you wanted to even take those properties. But even if we did, there's still a lot of inadequacies with the renovation and addition. And then, but the bottom one, again, just the simple renovation, it's a $14+ million project, and we're still stuck in a building that's woefully inadequate. So that's why, given the differences in impacts for the average taxpayer, to us, it's a pretty clear choice that building something proper, new at Church Street is the way to go. So with that, I'll stop talking and I'll turn it over to you guys for any questions you may have.
Do you have questions or comments from the select board?
So, yeah, I had a question. So if we keep our existing station, and you said you're going to build offices and such upstairs to separate, will it be divided by gender? Because I know that was an issue.
The office,
bunking?
the bunk.
Yeah.
What? Go ahead.
The way that we've looked at this would be to have the similar bunking, because that's the most efficient, and that's really all we can fit in there, but have a dedicated room that could be a female's room, or,
Okay.
so it would have at least one gender-specific bunking.
Okay. And for the Church Street location, there's room for adding on in the future,
Yes.
so.
Yeah, absolutely. When we took that into consideration, when we were
Yeah.
looking at that option too,
Okay.
we could add on to the site
Yeah.
as, in the direction, I guess, to the south, really, yeah.
Yeah, and like with the Inflation Reduction Act and such, is there any, are there any grants for solar? Like if you had a solar ceiling, could you
Yeah,
get?
we talked about that
Or
last
something.
time. I
Yeah.
think that there are, this will be an all-electric building regardless, which
Yeah.
means that if you can get a grant for solar, we can provide conduit to the roof, and you can put a solar array on the roof, if you can get a grant for that. And it's an all-electric building, so you can heat and cool it with electricity, which means solar can contribute to the cost of heating and cooling. And I don't know if we ever ran operation costs on these. But certainly, a new building, insulated and with, built kind of to today's standards, will be way more efficient than anything we can do with the existing building.
In the long run?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Other questions or comments?
Not that I think we should go with the middle option. How long would they be in the temporary housing, or that you?
It would be the duration of construction,
Yeah, how long would
plus time to, in this case, you'd have to move everything out. So, I think, what do we say, duration is probably in the neighborhood of 14 to 16 months these days. Plus, I don't know, what did he price, a year and a half probably? Something like that, yeah, about 18 months.
Okay, it's 18 months too long, I think, to
Yeah.
have our guys and women in that type of a temporary.
Yeah, and the trailers you're talking about for bunking are they're rented trailers, so these are tough conditions to be in. And there is no gender separation typically, available, so.
With that, do I have a motion to put the recommended Church Street project on the spring election and town meeting?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. All of my questions were answered, but in making this motion, I just want to make sure, just to remind everybody, Doug said it in the beginning, that make sure people know we're not going against town meeting. This is what town meeting asked of us to do. They asked us to go back to the drawing board and come back with a more cost-effective project, a smaller scale project. This is what the Fire Building Department Committee has done, and I think the Church Street location has always been the desired site, and that looks like the most efficient and best use of our tax dollars and for the future of the fire department going forward. So yeah, I'll make that motion to approve the Church Street Fire Station revised plan.
And do I have a second?
A second for putting it on the ballot for a special meeting.
And the town meeting check?
So again, our recommendations for the spring annual election and the spring annual town meeting.
Okay.
Just to give us more time to
Yep.
do outreach with the community.
Yep, okay. So moved.
All those in favor? Great, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the vote tonight. That's going to help us move forward.
All right. Next, we have a review of open meeting law complaints filed by Mary Parsons on August 19th, 2024, and John Ward on August 20th, 2024. Doug, I'm going to let you open this, but at the same time, after, we will then vote to delegate the town administrator and/or town council to issue a response to said complaints. But Doug, could you please?
Thanks, Tiffany. Yep, so as the board is aware, we received 2 open meeting law complaints after your last meeting. Those are both in your packet. The first was from Mary Parsons, and she has 2 things identified in her complaint. I'm not going to read it all verbatim, but it's essentially a complaint that the door to my office, where you hang up your coats and get your binders and review your material, drink your coffee before the meeting. Her first complaint was that that door should have remained open while you were in there before the meeting started. And then the second complaint is with respect to not properly going into executive session. So, and then I'm going to come back to this complaint. And then the second complaint was from Mr. Jack Ward. He only had 1 complaint, which was the second one from Ms. Parsons, which was failing to go into executive session properly. So, as Tiffany just said, I'm recommending that you vote tonight after we talk, vote to delegate drafting a response to me with the assistance of town council if I feel that that's necessary. I was out of the office last week, as you all know, but I got this earlier than that, so I have reviewed the complaints. I've reviewed my recollection. I've also watched the video. My perspective is, as it relates to the first complaint from Ms. Parsons, I don't know how else to say it. We are disagreeing. I don't think she is correct that the doors are required to remain open. The public meeting was held at 7 o'clock in this room. You're allowed to go into an office prior to the meeting and hang up your coats and drink your coffee and review your material. That's not the public meeting. That door, in my opinion, and I believe that I'm correct, I'll confirm it, does not have to remain open. And I think that's just the law, that's just a fact. The second complaint regarding to failing to go into executive session properly, I think she is correct. And just for the public's awareness, to go into executive session, it has to be properly posted on the agenda. And at our last meeting, it was properly posted on the agenda, so that wasn't an issue. But to go into the executive session at the end of the meeting, the chair should read the purpose of the executive session, which is what's printed on the agenda, and should also take a roll call vote. Roll call means have each person vote individually, do a roll call vote to go into the meeting. So I agree with Ms. Parsons, that was a mistake, that was not done properly. I just want to highlight that I was in the room, I was sitting right here, and I can't think of any other word to say it, but at least as far as Mr. Ward's complaint on the same topic goes, it's just, I don't even know if ironic's the right word.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah, I mean, in my recollection, my observation sitting here was that at the end of the meeting, Mr. Ward got up and created a loud disturbance. He raised his voice, he was talking over the board members, the chair told him that he was not recognized and he was not supposed to be speaking. He yelled at least one of the board members anyways. I noticed, because I looked, there were a few people that felt uncomfortable, were a little concerned in the back of the room. They quickly exited. We had a police officer in the room. He had to stand up and look in that direction to see if he had to intervene. And it looked and at least felt to me like Tiffany was a little nervous about that and just wanted to get this closed as quickly as possible and get into the executive session. But technically, she did not do it the right way. and that needs to be corrected going forward. But again, I think the context is important here, and this was the result of a disturbance that one of the complainants made, which I just think is astonishing. So that's generally where I'm coming from. I'll take the time to put something proper together in writing, but again, and I'll run this by town council, but my sense is there was no violation prior to the meeting when you guys were getting ready in my office. We'll explain the context for why the board didn't properly read the notice and take the roll call vote. Again, it was properly posted on the written agenda, and we'll make sure that that's corrected going forward. That's my sense of it. I'm happy to take any further direction from you guys or answer any questions you have.
And do we have any further questions or comments?
No, I would just agree, definitely make sure you include the context of this scenario. It was, I had known, because Tiffany had talked, prior to the meeting, a week prior, to, go over procedures going into executive session and how that happens, as this was our first meeting as the chairperson. And, we discussed specifically making sure that you read the reason. So she was aware of the reason at the time, and I think honestly what you had said about the commotion that was created by Mr. Ward, the fact that he had the audacity to file an open meeting law complaint for a situation that he caused just speaks to the character in general. And I think as long as that's included in, or lack of character, as long as that's included in anything that's sent to the state, I completely agree with when you guys go forward with it. It was alarming. It was really, that should be an apology from him, in all honesty. So, especially on Tiffany's very first night, seriously. That's all I got.
With that,
Oh, that's a motion, I'm sorry. I'll make a motion to allow Doug and Town Council to respond to the laughable open meeting law concern
I'll
raised by
second.
Mr. Ward and Ms. Parsons.
all those in favor?
And I second it, yep,
Okay.
yep. And
Thank you.
That's unanimous. Right, other new business not reasonably anticipated.
I have none.
Old business, we have a Union Point update this evening with John Tuig from New England Development, Brookfield Properties. John, please come on to the table. In the audience tonight, we also have our Rockland representatives. I just wanted to say hello to Tom Henderson and Kelly McKinnon. Thank you for being here. Oh. And Tony Green, thank you. Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us. For the record, John Tuig, with me, Paul Sincotta
Thank you.
from New England Development. We appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about where we're at in the process. It's been a little while since we have been here. We have a little presentation. Some of it, quite honestly, you're very aware of, but it's probably more for the people at home to kind of know a little bit about. We're probably not going to dwell on some of the background information as much, but again, just for context, because believe it or not, there are people who would say, what's that project all about? And where did that come from? So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. So I will, there we go. As I said, New England Development, Brookfield Properties, I think as you know, as we went through the town meeting process, some of our projects are off to the right that New England Development has done, and then also our partner with Brookfield Properties. Our consultant team is who you are aware they are as far as Dumont Jenks for planning, and Vanessa and Associates for traffic, and so we're sort of continuing with our team as we have moved forward. What we thought about today and tonight was to talk a little bit about the base today, and that's really for more the people at home, what's sort of their process is really where we'll get into a little bit about MEPA, Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, because that's new from when we were here last. Talk a little bit about infrastructure, open space. Something that we've not shown you before, the redevelopment framework, just to give you a sense of some of the things we're thinking about and the where. I think, and then a little bit about what's next in our schedule, so you can sort of see where we're headed. Again, more for the people at home. I think people realize that 1,400 acres of the base, biggest part of the site is in Weymouth. A substantial portion in Rockland, although a lot of that is open space and habitat. And then our piece in Abington, we have here the breakdown by acreage. We kind of talk about the open space because we always find it interesting that originally the disturbed area by the federal government when they built the base was about 900 acres, and we're going to have about 880 acres that are going to be available for open space or conservation or the like. I think everybody's familiar with the access. One thing we do remind people that our zoning that was passed here in Rockland and all three communities does comply with the MBTA Communities Act, so it's something to, it's certainly something been in the press and that people have talked about, but I think everybody obviously knows where we're at. Mm-hmm. Just to remind people what's there today, people are always surprised, there are 1,274 residences in Weymouth. This is all in Weymouth. There is commercial space. A lot of it is not occupied. The sports complex, obviously, the access points, 2 through Route 18, 1 on 228. We're not changing that. That's part of our filing. And then today, all the water and sewer is serviced by Weymouth. A little bit of a reminder about 2023. Obviously, our path through 2023 was Southfield redevelopment in March of 2023, then moving to Weymouth, where I wrote in the end of June, then moving to Rockland and Abington for town meeting preps that we went through. Abington town meeting was October, and then Rockland November 7th. The last piece that we highlight is really the MEPA Notice of Project Change, because that's what we'll talk about mostly tonight. That was filed at the very end of 2023 that started that process. And if you think about it, you need to get through the local process, the zoning, the support, because when you go into the state process, the state wants to know, do the community support this? Do they think it's the right thing? What kind of a vote did you get? It's all something that they ask. So as soon as we did finish with the communities for the zoning, we moved into the state approval process. The state can't issue any permits until that process is done. So we're in a place where we have natural heritage, we have MassDOT, all kinds of permits. We can't get them until that process is done. So we started that process then. So a little bit of the Notice of Project Change. As I mentioned, we filed it in December of last year. We had a public comment period through the end of January. We got 99 comment letters, not 100, we got 99. About 47 of them were general support letters, about 20 agency letters, and then there were letters from this board, folks in Abington, Weymouth Mayor, different organizations. We did get a certificate from the state on February 9th of 2024, which then caused us to file what they call a draft supplemental environmental report. Why they're supplementals? There have been a lot of filings. There's been a dozen filings with the state in the history of this project. So we did make that filing. Public comment period went through August 23rd. The certificate actually came out today. So we got that the state determined that we had adequately complied, and then gave us the letter to file our final environmental impact report. So it's sort of, you give them a notice, remind everybody of the project, you go through a draft, you get comment letters in, you respond to them, and then we move forward to what we call our final environmental impact report. So we got the certificate today. A lot of it was very supportive on MassDOT and energy initiatives and the like. No great surprise. What are they focused on? Water and sewer. It's what we've been focused on the whole time. So we will, and what we'll do is take all those we got some comment letters, we got some state agency letters, we'll take and process those and then file. Our hope is to have a final certificate from the state at the end of this year. So that's sort of what the goal is and where we're at in the process. As part of that, in our MEPA filing, we coordinate with a lot of agencies. Most of these are just initials, but MassDOT, obviously transportation, MAPC, MBTA, because they're very interested in what's going on at the base and where people are going to park and how that's going to work. Mass DEP, which is focused on environmental conditions on the site, that type of thing. Environmental justice, which is relatively new. The base didn't go through environmental justice, but that's for neighboring areas or communities or census tracts where you have people either due to ethnicity, financial situation, are they going to be particularly harmed by the project? In order to deal with that, for example, we went over and gave a public information session in Brockton. We talked, you go in a 5-mile radius. A couple of weeks ago, we were in Braintree. We went up to Braintree, and it is always interesting. Paul experienced this, the fellow who he asked to film it in Brockton. He said, yeah, I've heard of the base. I know what you guys are doing over there. He said, why would I be interested? We got sort of the same reaction in Braintree, but still, that's part of being sure that people are aware of what's going on. MWRA, I think, as most people know, there's another filing that was put in, a joint filing by the SRA and the town of Weymouth. Town of Weymouth has determined it's best for Weymouth to go on to the MWRA for their long-term growth. And the SRA is a joint applicant because if for whatever reason they should not proceed, the SRA can proceed. And I should mention that your representatives from the SRA are here. I know Tom is here, there is in the back. So certainly available to answer any questions. Water Resources Commission, Department of Energy, Natural Heritage, which is really on habitat. Those are all agencies we've met with, got letters from, met with again, and will continue to meet with as we move forward through the final. Local agencies, Weymouth, obviously, Planning, DPW, Abington, Water, and the Sewer Commissioners, Rockland, the Sewer Commission, Rockland Planning Department. We met with Brockton Area Transit. As Brockton Area Transit provides bus service into Rockland now, and they wanted to know about how best to expand that. Community outreach, we've had some public information meetings. As I mentioned, we've had a couple of what they call environmental justice meetings. We'll have some more of those before the final gets filed, and we'll pick a couple of other locations, whether we go over to Randolph and some other places. We continue, obviously, to update our website. This is a really boring slide, but it gives you a sense, because we haven't been here since we filed our draft, of the things that we put in the draft. Environmental justice, obviously transportation, we're still, I think we're up to, Paul knows better, 52 of 53 intersections that we're going to be doing work at. Water, obviously it's demand, it's supply, what are the alternatives, wastewater the same. Stormwater, wetlands, rare species, climate change, hazardous waste, what's going to happen during construction, how are you going to mitigate the various impacts, and then we respond to comments. We had about 350 comments. We had about 100 pages of responses. We filed about 2,000 pages of documents with all the attachments. In our draft, we had about 9,000 pages when we filed the notice of project change, just to give you a sense, between stormwater reports, traffic reports, all those types of things. So that's not very sexy or exciting stuff, but it is sort of what you have to do. A little bit about infrastructure, water, obviously. Right now, the entire base is served by water from Weymouth because it's all in Weymouth. We had to recommend what is our permanent solution. Our permanent solution is the MWRA. And our expectation is that water would be supplied. Obviously, Weymouth will supply it, and also the SRA, as a quasi-municipal authority, has the right to be able to take that water and then wheel that water through into the other communities. So Weymouth is going to supply, on a permanent basis, the water through the MWRA connection. And I think people may have read, there's a strong desire to bring MWRA water to the South Shore. We actually got some comment letters in our draft certificate from neighboring communities to Rockland saying, and we're going to size the pipe to take 15 million gallons of water, because one thing all of the South Shore communities don't have is water. Certainly any excess of water. So that's the water story. Sewer is different. Sewer is supplied on a town-by-town basis. Weymouth is an MWRA sewer community. They have a sewer system. Abington sends its flow over to Brockton. They have and we actually were in front of the Abington Sewer Commissioner. They did vote to authorize us to have gallonage to service Abington. So we have that. Rockland, we met with the Sewer Commission. We have determined that there really isn't an opportunity to tie into the sewer system in Rockland. I think I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know all about the sewer system. It is significantly overcharged. and has caused some not insignificant environmental issues. It's a plant built for the 2.5 million gallon range. It has ranged anywhere from 5 to a maximum of 10 million gallons on processing, depending on weather. We have met with the commission. We're supporting them on some testing we've suggested that they do to try to address what arguably we think is 3 to 5 million gallons of inflow that has got to come out of the system. And that's, but we also looked at Rockland because of where it is placed, where contamination and PFAS was on the site. We're going to be able to do a fair amount of septic systems on the site, which are individual lots up to 10,000 gallons, and that's how we're going to have to address that from the Rockland standpoint. That's sort of our initial move, because Abington and Weymouth we can use municipal sewer. We don't think Rockland's that opportunity. And although we are supporting Rockland with some of the smoke testing that you'll see, and you'll see some of the information that they're putting out about that, when they'll be in a position to be able to supply additional gallonage, we don't know. So rather than not have any development in Rockland, we have been focused on, we did mounting analysis and determined that we could best go to septic as opposed to trying to do something else. We certainly hope that situation will get better over time, but there's a fair amount of work that has to be done for that to happen in Rockland. Water supply, I mentioned MWRA. One thing the MWRA has is lots of excess water. They have about 100 million gallons a day in excess supply that currently has no customer base. About 51 million gallons available for new customers. They did put out a program where the next 20 million gallons that are called for by municipalities are free. One of the big objections to joining the MWRA was it costs a lot of money in the initiation fee. To give you a sense, Weymouth will save over $30 million under this program as a joining fee. So this gives you a little bit of a sense. MWRA, they could increase the supply up to about 15 million gallons. They have to do some process improvements. The gallonage is up in the Blue Hills. Part of the filing that is done by Weymouth and the SRA is to identify how to bring that pipe down, with what actual route should be taken, and it's about 6-7 miles away. It's really Braintree-Quincy routes that would take. So, but again, that would come into the Weymouth system. On a process standpoint, for where they're at, the MEPA process for the Weymouth, the SRA, I've mentioned it a few times, they filed on May 31st. Their public comments, again, they're going to probably file additionally as they get their comments through for their own, and that sort of runs as a little bit of a separate process from what we're doing, and that probably will run into 2025. Give you a sense. Sewer flows, I've talked a little bit about this. Weymouth, our estimated flows are about 620,000 gallons at full build. They've identified a bunch of capacity and other upgrades that need to be done, and we've worked with Weymouth on understanding those costs and expenses. Rockland, about 160,000 gallons. Our septic system, we're about 80. We've identified that we know we can put at least 80, maybe up to 100,000 gallons into the Rockland system. As I mentioned, there are significant I&I issues, inflow issues, which could be pipes, could be individual sumps, and could be right here downtown where the stormwater system and the sewer systems are connected. That's part of the smoke detecting system to try to figure out where those connections are and then replumb them, because and how you know that's happening is because you get the heavy rains, flows go way up. What is that? That's stormwater system running into your sewer system. That's a big piece of what it is. So, and as I said, Paul's been working a great deal with the commission on supporting them to be able to do that. Abington, as I mentioned, we need about 150,000 gallons. They have about 500,000 gallons in excess in their agreement with Brockton. They have 1.5 million gallons with Brockton, and they did approve in June our right to be able to connect to the Abington system. So that's how we sit with that. Transportation, you've probably seen this plan before. It's the 70 some odd intersections that we identified. there's multiple, we've agreed with MassDOT, there are multiple tiers of development. Each time we get to a certain development point, we're going to go back and file a new traffic study, analyze, did we get it right as far as the improvements that we made, and if we didn't, we have to change and do some additional improvements, monitor it every year, and then do a full traffic study at the time of when we reach a tier, which is based on number of homes or commercial space that you build. There are 5 of the tiers that we would do. So that's on our transportation. Open space story, which you've seen before, really doesn't change. You can see from the green where, the open space, conservation areas, restricted areas stay in the green. This is what we filed with the draft. You can see it's sort of like the shape of a check mark, and it says 104 acres of grassland restoration. A lot of that is where the debris piles are now, and it's taking out the debris piles and turning them back into grassland habitat, which is really for the birding. And then on to the right of that, and then up through Rockland is a lot of, obviously, the turtle habitat that exists today. And we're amending our natural heritage permit that exists out there today, which has been in default for a while, to kind of restrict all these areas and to show and to commit to taking the debris piles down and creating the restoration areas, creating the open space. This is new. You haven't seen this before. It was in our filing. It gives you a sense, and I won't spend a lot of time on it, but it gives you a sense about where things could go. If you look in the center, obviously you have the Delahunt Parkway. What are all the colors mean? Well, the colors, as you look at, I'll call it, sort of shows up as a purple here. As you get into the darker colors, you have more density, and probably there you might imagine the multifamily sort of higher density. As you get into the lighter colors, you can imagine, again, if this was residential, more townhomes. As you get into the really kind of light purple, more single-family homes, less dense housing. The blues are more commercial, where we would imagine commercial space. Now, none of this should be taken as gospel. It's sort of what our current sense is, where our open space connections would be in green, where we have the greenways coming down, where we have major arterial roads sort of in the yellow that come off of, as you might imagine, in looking this, we're changing sort of how the Shade Memorial Boulevard comes through and makes that connection into the parkway. Really thinking about now, we're getting to that point of, how do we create the open space, what type of housing in our commercial development, and where should that development be? This was sort of our first cut at thinking that through. No great surprise that you'd have your denser housing along the parkway closer to where the other multifamily developments are, and then as you get away from that, you would have less dense housing. As you get up, for example, up into the Coast Guard piece, you can imagine, for example, that we anticipate single-family homes would be up there. It's more wooded. It's sort of a different area than other parts of the base, which might be more conducive to higher densities. So that gives you a little bit of sense. And obviously, there's a lot of pedestrian bicycle connectivity and trails and all different things, and we're starting to think about all that and starting to show that on plans. A little bit about what's next. We'll continue on water and sewer and transportation and natural heritage and energy, and working with the Navy on some of the environmental cleanups that they're responsible for. We'll continue to do that as we get ready to file our final. As I said, we'll have a couple more community outreach. We've been asked to have some, especially for environmental justice in other communities, and also including in the area that we're in. Anticipate a final MEPA filing again this fall. We just got the certificate today, but we're meeting tomorrow to go through all the comment letters and start writing our next 1,000 pages of stuff to go in. Our hope is to get a final MEPA certificate by the end of this year, and that's sort of our hope. A little bit about our website. It's Reimagine the Base, has not changed, but we try to keep some updates on there. Feel free if anyone is interested, and certainly for the folks at home. We try to, we'll post the certificate, and we'll post other things on there later this week and next week, so that people can have that as we move forward. So that's
the SRA really maintains a great catalog of all of the materials that have been filed as well.
Yeah, if you go on the SRA website, you can really find everything, and they have all of our presentations. We put our presentations on. We're currently, I think, in 4 languages, feel free. And we, in environmental justice world today, we posted in 37 different libraries, town halls, in 4 languages, so that people can sort of find information about the project and at least get noticed about where to go for those things. So.
Thank you. Can you give us a general sense of the development estimated timeline when it comes to realistically looking at development in Rockland, just to kind of gauge?
Yeah, I mean, overall, this project is about 10 to 12 years. I mean, you have to figure where our goal is to have all our permits and approvals in place next year, because once you've, as I mentioned, once you finish with MEPA, you then can apply and get your state permits. It says they can't issue until MEPA is done. So with the goal of being in 2025, and then start development. We've had a lot of interest, including commercial interest, along the 228 side. The issues that we have to solve are really water and sewer. And be sure, the uses that we have, can they fit into the, for example, in sewer and into a septic, and we have to also determine how best to solve the water issue, knowing full well that the permanent solution, the MWRA, in the best case scenario is 7 years away. So we have to look at, how can we solve the water and sewer issues.
Thank you. Other questions and comments from the board?
Yeah, I had about 14 questions, but most of them got knocked out with saying you're going to septic, which is, for me, a little disappointing, but
It's for us
considering.
too.
Yeah, I know. So I guess, talking to residents, a lot of them see all of the sprawl that's happened on Weymouth on the Route 18 corridor, and they are just nervous that will happen in Rockland too, on the base and such. Can you explain a little bit about how you fold a quaint little town feel into a project like this?
Sure. I have to go back to, I didn't highlight it, but in the center there, in the kind of the orangey color, we call it the town center. And part of that is we're putting it right off the Parkway for an opportunity for more community retail, food, restaurant. We're also programming to be part of it to be a small market. I mean, those are things that sort of then kind of create a place. We think, and again, no great surprise, your density is going to be closest to the Parkway, but create a place that, through a combination of trails, the town center, the green space that you can somewhat see, tough to see on a scale of 1,400 acres, but to the immediate right of the orange space, trying to create several acres of place and community space. So we think that will help sort of start to create, and also the recalibration of the roadway network, and to sort of bring it all into a community, as opposed to kind of limit that level of sprawl that you could have if you sort of didn't have a plan for it. As I said, there's a fair amount of commercial interest right now on the 228 side, which I think Rockland could be the beneficiary of, and because of people's desire to kind of look on that side, and that's why you see the light blue that's there. So I think we can control it by, it's not going to surprise you, building onto what's already there and sort of starting in a very deliberate way, creating a town center that has some of those amenities and placemaking, creating the green areas that also have as part of placemaking with the combined trails. So I think, because we're trying to create a community here within Rockland and within Abington, within Weymouth, that people feel a part of and will feel comfortable going from one end to the other. So that's what we're trying to avoid. We're not crazy about some of the stuff that's gone out on 18 too, where it's just sort of been lopped in and not, the other part, and we talked about when we did the zoning, we have to, any project that gets built, we have a design approval, obviously, even if we didn't build it. Because obviously we'll build a lot of this, but we won't build it all. So to make it look a certain way and have a certain feel to it, that's part of, unlike some of the stuff that's happened on 18, I don't mean to rag on people on 18, but it was different developers, different view, different lots, different price points. Oftentimes you get that kind of sprawly, not consistent view, whereas here, everything has to be approved by one group, and that's a combination of us working with the SRA. So I think you won't see that same level. That's our sense.
Okay, well, thanks. And, you know, I mean, how long have you been doing what you do, John? How many
I was
years?
about a child when I started. I actually started, my first project with New England Development was the Emerald Square Mall in North Attleboro, which was in 1986.
Okay.
1986, so not that long ago.
Yeah,
30
roughly
years.
40 years, almost?
I'm on my 39th year of doing
Okay.
this, yes.
Okay, so I mean, I consider you an expert in
Oh, I don't know how to do that. But
taking,
okay.
well, and taking on these huge projects and developing them successfully where it works with towns. And I know our sewer system's been kicked down the road, and it's for decades. And comparatively, it's really in sad shape compared to a lot of other places around. So I'm just wondering, can you explain in very simple terms how I&I is created, how capacity is created for sewer?
Well, I'm going to turn some of this over to Paul, because Paul's an engineer, and he's going to do this much better than I will do it. But when you go into communities, you sort of have a sewer treatment plant, fine. Then you have, and they're always focused on when people say, well, I want a 4-to-1 I&I removal rate. And what they're really saying is you have a combination, sometimes depending on the community, of leaky pipes, old pipes, pipes that are in water, or systems that are connected. In the older industrial parts of New England especially, you have sewer and drainage systems. Sewer systems came in oftentimes later, where they weren't separated. They're all sort of one thing, which I think is part of what Rockland suffers with. I mean, you have a series of challenges. I mean, you have an older plant that has a series of issues that requires investment, but you have a very significant I&I, inflow and infiltration problem that has to be addressed, because even if you were to build a brand-new plant, you still have to address the fact you've got 3 to 4 million gallons of I&I issues that have to be addressed. And really, I think part of the step that we're going to fund is the smoke detector, which is really to try to determine if you have some of the older factories in here, whether it be the old E.T. Wright factory or something that might, I'm not picking on them, but years ago, your downspouts went down and ended up in the sewer system, and you do have certainly a charged system when it rains and significant rain, and that's really exceeding what your system and your pumps can handle. So our view is, and again, we're humble entrants into your community. I mean, the community should decide what to do, but you have to address that issue because even if you had a state-of-the-art plant, it doesn't matter if you don't address your I&I issues. And there is a program over the next 4 to 5 years to address about 165,000 gallons of I&I. I have to tell you, our response to that was, when you have millions of gallons of I&I to be addressed, that probably is not going to be sufficient, which is why we're hopeful that people will focus on the I&I and the smoke detector and say, maybe we ought to start. And it happened in my own community, where people unknowingly hooked up their sump pumps and it went into the sewer system, and that had to be broken. And you go around, you do inspections, and you say, you got to break these systems because you can't have connected systems. I mean, that's the type of thing that has to be done. It's been done in a bunch of other communities. It has to be done here too. That's our humble opinion. Again, not to tell people who know their systems better than we do. But Paul, if you want to, I mean, you've lived a lot of this more than I have.
And to put it into perspective, so the II is, there's an infiltration piece, which you think of as leaky pipes, where groundwater and those kinds of things can get in. And then there's pipes that are connected to the sewer system that should not be, roofs, parking lots, sump pumps, that sort of thing. It's not unusual, especially in an older community, where the relationship between the inflow leaky pipe problem versus the inflow problem, which is the illicit pipe connections in, is like a 10-to-1 relationship. So what's really a good opportunity with the smoke testing program that folks will see rolling out in the coming weeks is that you can easily sort of identify some really big contributors to the inflow problem. For example, half an acre parking area that's piped right into the sewer system, if you get a couple of inches of rain, it's 30 or 40,000 gallons in that one event. So if there's a few acres of parking lots in downtown or a few acres of parking lots and roofs combined, it's absolutely nothing to get a couple 100,000 gallons of flow into the system. The leaky pipes are always an issue, but they're typically much smaller in volume and problem. So I think the idea of going after the plumbing that's needs to be replumbed and have drainage go in the right places, not into the sewer system, it can be a very, very cost-effective way to take a lot of flow out. And so that's the focus right now.
Yep, and you're working with the sewer commission on.
Correct.
On doing that,
We're
yep.
helping the commission on
Yep.
The smoke testing program there.
Yep. And you were kind enough to cover the cost of that. Is that right?
We're offering to cover a significant part of the cost
Portion
of
of it,
that,
yeah.
of that testing. And
Yeah.
it's expected that smoke testing will cover about 80% of the town.
Wow.
It's all of those areas in town that are, with some level of metering, have identified as being those that are most susceptible to rain events where you see the flow spike in a rain event. So
Yep.
there's a targeted areas in town that will be smoke tested, and those connections hopefully will all be substantially located, and then it's just a matter of starting to attend to getting the plumbing right,
Great.
redirecting them.
Well, thank you for explaining that.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the board? All right, well, with that, I want to say thank you very much for coming today.
Okay, thank you. No, appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Next, we have a vote to call fall special town meeting and open the warrant Wednesday, November 20th, 2024 at 7 o'clock at Rockland High School. Doug?
Thanks, Tiffany. So we've talked about this at a number of meetings recently, so I'm recommending that as you have a full quorum, that you guys actually make the vote tonight. So we're recommending to have a special town meeting. It's on a Wednesday. I want to highlight that, not a Monday like we normally do, but a Wednesday, November 20th at 7 o'clock at the high school. Part of the reason for that date is there's a big election happening in Washington, in case anybody hasn't heard, so the clerk's office is going to be very busy both during that week and also the following week as they finish up all their work. Then there's a holiday the following Monday, and then working with the moderator's schedule, town council's schedule, et cetera. Wednesday the 20th, I think, is the sweet spot, and it's still far enough away from Thanksgiving. I included in your packet just an example of 7 potential articles, just to get a sense of what we're looking at. The thing that's really driving this town meeting is what I'm listing here is number 1, which is increasing the school department budget. And that's in right after tab E, in case you're looking for it. We got, I forgot the exact number, a little under $200,000 of net increased state aid compared to what we had assumed when we did the budget and went to town meeting. So we're recommending appropriating that entire additional amount to the school department budget. Then I think there'll be a couple of other articles. We have one minor correction to a typo in one individual salary line. I'm anticipating the water department will have a number of capital articles, which they will most likely fund from their capital stabilization fund. If needed, we're going to be submitting, and I'll talk about this more in my town administrator comments, but we're going to be submitting our final Plymouth County ARPA application for the sewer department for the installation of the generator. Plymouth County has made some additional requirements above and beyond what the federal treasury requires as it relates to taking votes for commingling funds. I don't think we're going to need a specific town meeting vote for this, but I'll submit the application. I'm hoping to submit it actually as soon as later this week, so I should know within plenty of time whether we'll need to have an additional article just to follow those procedures for the county to commingle their regular enterprise fund budget with the ARPA grant. The sewer department's also asked to increase their revolving fund limit, so that's an easy one. We've talked at prior meetings as we're looking to have the rec department leave the McKinley School. We've talked a lot about daycare and the cost for relocating daycare, potentially to the Eston School, so that could be an article on here if we chose to do it then. And then lastly, I've heard from the superintendent at South Shore Tech, the Regional Vocational Technical School. He's asking that all the communities vote at their next town meeting to update the regional agreement with South Shore Tech, and that's specifically relating to how any debt would be allocated. So if their building project goes through or any other project in the future, the way the regional agreement works now, everyone's debt is allocated based on a single snapshot as of a single point in time on what our share of total enrollment is. So just to make up kind of semi-accurate numbers, say we're around 23% right now of total enrollment. We'd be stuck with 23% of that debt service for the life of those bonds, going for whatever it is, 10, 20, 30 years. But we know that Marshfield's coming on and enrollment changes. As Marshfield goes up, even with a larger school, our share of enrollment's going to go down. So by changing this system, it's actually going to be more fair to communities like Rockland, so that as our proportional share of enrollment goes down, our proportional share of the debt would also go down. It'd be like a rolling average, something like that. So that's all I have right now. I do every town meeting the same. I just start with like a draft list. Anybody that has anything,
Excuse me.
they let me know, and we put it on there. But just to get a sense of what could potentially be on the warrant, that's it. Again, the school budget's the one that's driving it. Happy to answer any questions, and again, I think it'd be helpful for all of us, if you were comfortable with it, to take a vote, to call the meeting, open the warrant, just so we can get rolling.
I'll make a motion to call for first special town meeting and open the warrant. Town meeting for Wednesday, 11/20/24, 7 p.m. at the RHS auditorium.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next on the agenda, National Grid Electric Vehicle Charging Stations Update.
Thanks, Tiffany. So I'm just getting to that part in the binder. Here we go. So I included in your packet a 3-page document that summarizes what the issues are with our electric vehicle charging stations, followed by the last page, which has my recommendation. And then following that, we have the letter from National Grid, which is really what started this whole discussion. So for everyone's sake, just to recap where we are now, the town currently now has 3 sets of charging stations on town property. There's the one here at Town Hall, there's the one at the library. The one here at Town Hall and the library, it's one charging head with 2 connections, so you can charge 2 cars simultaneously, both here at the library. There's additionally new chargers that we installed at the Phelps Elementary School. So we received this letter from National Grid because the ones that are here at Town Hall and at the library are owned by National Grid. So I want to say that again. We do not own them. They're owned by the utility. That was funded through a grant from the State Department of Energy and Environmental Affairs. The state has a new policy now where they no longer want to support grants to utilities to subsidize these kinds of stations, and they've told the utilities they need to divest themselves of them. The state no longer wants public utilities having charging stations for the public. So they gave us this letter that you can see, and it basically gives us 3 options. And again, I want to highlight that these options are only as it relates to the town hall station and the library station. The new chargers at the Phelps School, we bought those, we paid for them, we own them. National Grid has nothing to do with National Grid. So the three options they've given us is we can acquire ownership in them. They'll essentially just give them to us, and then we own them and can do with them as we see fit. Of course, with ownership comes responsibility for all maintenance. And as I put in the document, I'm just looking for the exact cost. It can range between $3,500 and $5,000 every time you have to repair a charging station. So they gave us three options. One is they can give them to us, we'll own them, be responsible. Option two is they could potentially turn it over to a third party, so a private electric vehicle charging company, and they would charge customers. We would get compensated back for the cost of the electricity that's running through us, but then they would, continue to mark it up beyond that. And then thirdly, they can remove the station, completely return the site to its original state. So again, I'm not going to go through and read all this. I know you've looked at the materials. What I'm recommending is we acquire the ownership in the town hall station here. That's partly because about a year or two ago, that was broken and National Grid fully replaced it. So it's like a brand new head. It's essentially a brand new station. We need it here because we have two electric vehicles that are used by various town departments, so we need them to charge our vehicles. The station at the library, we're recommending that we have National Grid remove. And that's partly because the parking lot is so small at the library. It's two spots is actually a large proportion of their total amount of parking. And they get regular complaints. Believe it or not, while electric vehicles are a great thing, it's an interesting sociological thing. There are actually conflicts with people charging them, complaining that a car has been charging it for too long, or a gasoline vehicle is parking there when it shouldn't. They go in and complain to the librarians at the reference desk, and that's not in their wheelhouse necessarily. But the main issue really, aside from those issues, is the lack of space. It's just taking away from our existing parking. That's been something that both the prior library director and the current one have brought up to me. Unfortunately, when we met with National Grid, the option of having a private entity take over the library station, this is just a form letter they sent out. In actuality, when we looked at a map and talked about it, they said that's not actually an option for Rockland because these companies need economies of scale. They need lots of chargers to be able to offset their fixed costs. So for a private company to come in and take it over, they're going to want to add more charging stations to the library lot. That obviously doesn't make any sense because we don't have any parking where it is. I've talked to Dr. Cron, the school superintendent, about this just generally in the past, because where these really should be for the public, at least, ideally it'd be great if we had others in municipal offices for other municipal vehicles, but for the public's sake, they should really be in large parking lots. And Dr. Cron, I believe, is open to looking at future expansion in other school parking lots. I think there are some grants that we could get for that. So, long story short, that's what we're recommending is acquiring the one at Town Hall, having National Grid remove the one. I should highlight again, when I got here, we had 4 chargers available to the public, the 2 at Town Hall, the 2 at the library. Even if we do this, we remove the one at the library and we keep the one here and keep it restricted to town vehicles, we still have the same number of chargers that we had before. We have 4 fast chargers at Phelps that are available to the public to use anytime. And there's other chargers around too, in Hanover Mall and places like that. So I hope that's helpful. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Any questions or comments?
Yeah. What does it cost to charge a vehicle at the Phelps School? Is there a fee for that?
There is, I think it's 26 cents a kilowatt.
Okay.
I might have even put that in there, but I think it's right around there, which is, it'll probably have to go up, once our electric rates ultimately do go up, but that's covering not just the generation, but the distribution. You get 2 parts of every electric bill and then a tiny cushion for our cost increases.
And the 2 stations here and the 2 at the library are cost-free?
Right, so again, yes. The one here at Town Hall is only restricted to town vehicles. The one at the library is available to the public, for free to the public, meaning we pay the electric bill.
Okay. All right. That's all.
All right, so any more questions or comments?
Well, I guess first of all, thank you for tabling this until I could be here.
Sure.
My big ask on this is, I mean, I think we should take it out of the library. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it's been there for 10 years. It's been a pain in the butt for them for 10 years. And I don't want to have to pay to maintain the unit. So I think we should get rid of it. The only thing that I ask is that we give public notice that it's going away on X date. That it's maybe when National Grid gives us a date that it be taken out, we put something up on the website.
Yeah.
Maybe look at fixing something to the actual head.
That makes sense.
So people know that, hey, as of X date, you can't charge your car here anymore. Because I know there's people, this full disclosure, I use it. So I kind of get into that, seeing the same cars up there. So I do know that there's people there who use it. I would just hate just to flip the switch and, you know, it's there today, it's gone tomorrow. So that's my really only ask, is that whatever we decide to do, which I'm assuming it's going to be to remove it, that there's some kind of a notice.
Sure. Get the
I
word
think
out.
that's a totally valid point. Yep, and no issue with that from my perspective.
Thank you for that. So with that said, may I entertain a motion to keep the town hall charging stations and remove the library charging stations?
Motion.
Do we have a
Second.
second? All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Great, thank you.
All right. With that said, Saturday, September 14th is Police Appreciation Day. Throughout the day, we will be expressing our appreciation to our police department with a ceremony at 1 o'clock at the police station. So that is something that if people would like to attend, they're invited to, but we will be at the police station at 1 o'clock to express our appreciation. Is there anything else that anybody else would like to add to that? Okay. With that said, we can move on to other old business not reasonably anticipated.
I have none.
Okay, item number 6, Town Administrator's Report and Correspondence.
Thanks, Tiffany. Just a couple things. One thing I want to let you know about, I may have alluded to this in the past, I'm not sure, but we've been talking to our engineering firm and a potential developer regarding the Pleasant Street landfill, which is a closed landfill off of VFW Drive. And I just today signed a revocable license agreement. And just for everyone's sake, again, a license agreement is not a lease, doesn't give anyone actually interest in property. It's like a permission slip, allows them to access property temporarily with certain conditions. So we've granted them this license agreement so they can do some due diligence to look at potential options like a public-private partnership with private developers that could cap the landfill, which, even though it's closed, it's not properly capped per Department of Environmental Protection requirements. And we're going to need to cap that at a cost of, I don't know, could be $5 million, could be more by the time it happens. But there are programs with private developers where they will come in, assuming, and there's lots of details that would have to be worked out later, where they could bring in fill material that's legally appropriate for the site. Then they pay to cap it per all DEP regulations, and maybe even puts in some kind of amenities up above, some kind of recreational areas, something like that. So this is very, very early on in this concept, but as part of the due diligence, we're going to let one developer have access to the site so we can get some feedback. After that, once we talk to them, talk to our engineers, and get a sense of, is this even a possibility? If there might be something to it, we'll obviously bring it back to you. You'll need to vote to decide if you want to pursue anything. And if we get that far, then we obviously need to follow state procurement laws, issue requests for proposals, things like that. So if anybody sees anyone up in that area, you know, poking around or whatever in trucks, they have permission. That's why that's happening. And in particular, I want to thank Allison, our planner, and Courtney, our assistant administrator, because this was really all their idea, and it's a fantastic idea, and it could save the taxpayers millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars. Next, I just thought I'd list a couple of ongoing projects I've talked about before, and I'll keep mentioning them at our future meetings. We have our town hall HVAC study that we're doing. I'm waiting for the cost estimate on that. The police station roof and HVAC project is underway. I mentioned earlier the sewer department generator installation, so the contract is fully signed. I'm going to be submitting that ARPA application later this week, and that will exhaust all of our county ARPA funds. But this will be great to get this done because obviously having a generator provide emergency power to a sewer plant is pretty critical. We're also continuing to work on the new operations at the Mount Pleasant Cemetery, hiring the 2 laborers. We've hired a software vendor that's building out the electronic database for the cemetery, creating the maps and all those cards. I again want to thank Pamela Ryan from our Historical Commission. She's been a huge help volunteering with us. She has knowledge of the cemetery. I really want to thank her. We're still working on that wage and classification study for all town employees that I mentioned before. We're on kind of the tail end of that. That project was funded from a grant that Stacy Callahan got before she left. Depending on the results of that and the funding available at town meeting, we'll see what we're going to be able to incorporate. And then lastly, we're going to be helping the Parks Commissioners with a feasibility study, the procurement for their feasibility study for a new track. We got funding appropriated at last May. I think they can use a little bit of assistance just, doing the process to engage an engineer. So those are some of those projects that I wanted to mention. And then I just wanted to quickly hand out one piece of paper. There's 3.
Thank you.
So this, I just thought I'd share. We were notified that we're approved for technically 4, but really 3 main projects through the Green Communities program. Over $94,000 for heat pump replacements at the wastewater treatment plant, at the sewer department. Almost $31,000 for sewer plant weatherization upgrades, and almost $115,000 for installation at the library, and then some additional admin assistance for the town in administering all these programs. So this was all Courtney. I just wanted to, she'll probably be embarrassed I'm doing this, but I wanted to thank her for that because this adds real value, and especially like our sewer department needs every penny they can save for all their other upgrades, so to the extent we can get grants for them to help lower their energy costs is a really good thing. And so I want to thank Courtney for her efforts there. And then lastly, you heard Paul Sincata and John Tuig allude to the smoke testing that's happening. So I asked Courtney if she can come up because she's actually been working on that quite a bit with them as well. And I thought it'd be helpful for you and the community to understand what's going to be happening.
I'm just going to hand these out for you all. Just a packet of information on the smoke testing that's going to be starting up here in the next couple of weeks through the sewer department and their engineering firm, Weston and Sampson. So I'm going to go sit down and I'm going to repeat what I just said so everybody can hear me. But I just thought it would be helpful for you all to see this. I just uploaded it on the website today. It's on the main page of the website under the town spotlight section. You can click on that link there and it'll give you all these documents. It's also on the sewer department webpage. So I'm working a little bit with the sewer commission on getting the smoke testing started up, and it looks like it's going to be starting kind of mid-September through October, weather permitting. As the development team indicated earlier, this is really to address inflow and infiltration issues in the sewer system, and really focused a lot on inflow because we have a really large problem with inflow, and that really stresses the plant itself. So working with the commissioners, we and their engineering firm, Weston and Sampson, they put together a slew of materials, some frequently asked questions for residents if they want to know what smoke testing is, how it will impact them. There's a hotline that's been set up. All of that information is available in this packet that I just gave you, but also on the website. A couple of things that I'll just highlight that they also are in the FAQ sheets is just the smoke is non-toxic. You may see it in your home. If you do see it in your home, you should let the team that's working nearby, Weston and Sampson, know that you see it in your home. You should open your windows, but it is a non-toxic smoke, and it really is to help to take stress off of the existing sewer infrastructure here, and will help us to plan more long-term for kind of taking some of those flows out of the sewer treatment facility itself and putting them into more stormwater treatment facilities. But I really just wanted to kind of make sure that you all have this information. It's like fresh on the website today. It just got sent out late last week. And it's really just a great informational package of what smoke testing is, what residents need to know just as far as like, you know, what should they do, what should they look for. There's really nothing you need to do other than just not be alarmed that there might be some smoke coming out of the manholes in the street, or, and they'll be doing it section by section. We're gonna be having, I'll be having some maps printed off, and I'll also be uploading those maps onto the website. The maps will be available in the lower level conference room here. I'll also print some maps that will be available at the sewer department. And then I think I'm also printing a few maps to be available at both the police and fire department, just for them, for their teams. But really, it's a town-wide effort, and it's a great initiative to help our very stressed infrastructure system. And I just wanted to make sure that the board had all the information that we have and that Weston and Sampson has provided to us, and that the residents know that all of that information is also available to them online. We'll do some notices on social media as well. But I just want to kind of make sure that everybody's aware of what's going on and answer any questions that you all might have.
I have one. So,
Yep.
And it very well, the answer could be in here, so, but,
Yeah.
so once the smoke testing is initiated and, you know, they produce their findings,
Yep.
what's our next step in terms of how the town addresses that? I mean, I think it sounds really exciting because it could serve, you know, help us fix a lot of, you know, identify what's broken.
Yeah.
But is there that next step yet, or the big thing is this is a finding mission and then we'll go from there?
Yeah, I think that this is a good first step.
Mm-hmm.
And really what will happen is they'll do this initial testing, then they will confirm that testing. The engineering firm indicated that like maybe we would have some findings later on this year, maybe early December. And from those findings, we can work together across departments to try and come up with some solutions for that. One thing that I think, I don't want to speak for the sewer commission, but I think one thing that they want to make sure that residents know is that we're not going to go after some pump connections right away, or kind of like it's not a penalty. We're just trying to fix the sewer system and identify where our weak points are, and that hopefully we'll be able to work kind of across departments to help take some of that flow off of the sewer system and put it where it belongs, which is really in stormwater management systems. And so I think it will be a cross-department collaboration that we'll need to kind of use as a next step. And, you know, there's a lot of ideas and a lot of ways that towns do address that, and we're in some initial kind of exploratory research phases of that, kind of looking at what options do we have once we've identified these sources of inflow in particular, and how can we as a town help support those efforts on private land, because really a lot of these connections a lot of this inflow is going to be coming from, you know, roof drains or sump pumps that maybe people don't even know that they have really connected to the sewer system. Some of it will be in, you know, like parking lot drainage, like those types of things that we don't necessarily always think of right away. So we're not quite there yet, I guess, is the easiest way to say that. But I think that there is a desire to make sure that we use this information to take it to the next level and make sure that we use the engineers' findings to take that flow off of the sewer system. We don't want to, that's really our goal, is to take stress off of the plant. Because the more flow that goes into the plant, the more that plant gets stressed. And the more that plant gets stressed and the more flow that goes in there, the more often we have sewer system overflows. And we don't want that to happen because of lots of reasons. We don't want the plant to get stressed, but we also don't want to pollute any of our waterways, right? So I think that's the big, well, my very long answer to your question. There's a desire to figure out what that next step is yet, but we're not there yet.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah. Well, it's been a long time coming that some forward motion's happening with the sewer department. And I'm really happy to see that. And I'm really happy that the developers are working with the commission to help cover the costs of it, because it's quite pricey. Another thing I wanted to say is oftentimes with smoke testing, there are drones that fly around. So if you see a weird drone flying around your house, that's likely what it is.
Yes.
So.
And good point, Lori. There is some language in this smoke testing notice about drones. That is something that the Weston and Sampson engineering team has included as part of their scope of work, is drones. And part of that is confirmatory, and part of that is to identify like the actual roof systems that are also draining into the sewer system. So more to come on that, but that will be starting up in the next couple of weeks before our next select board meeting. So I want to make sure that you all are aware of that, and also that the public is aware of that. Neighborhoods will get 2 notifications, and the team will be going out door to door with door hangers and notifying residents when they're going to be doing any smoke testing in their areas. So we will be doing some publications of this stuff online and on social, but the engineering team will also be doing public notification. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No,
All right.
that's it.
All right, next we have select board comments. Select person O'Laughlin.
I have no comments tonight.
Select person Ellard.
Yeah, I got, I guess, 3 things, 3 items that maybe we can consider putting on a future agenda. So I just figured I'd ask about them here. Whether or not the board wants to consider bringing back a public comment ability for people to come up and address the board. Other towns do that. The town I work for actually has it listed on their agenda twice, once at the beginning of the meeting, once at the end of the meeting. So I just thought maybe we could discuss if that's something we want to bring back after a few-year hiatus. Secondly, this is semi-related to Mary's complaint that she filed. I'll preface this by saying I wasn't here last week when the door was closed, but I get what she's getting at, that does look weird or maybe not ideal. So maybe we can talk about whether we want to have a policy that addresses when that door can remain open or not. So that's the other thing. And thirdly, I was taking a look at the code of conduct that is related to us. And one thing I noticed in there is that we're supposed to review that annually and reaffirm it after the board is reorganized. And unless I missed it, I don't think that happened. So we may want to address that at our next meeting. So those are my 3 suggestions for discussion at a future point.
Okay, thank you. Select person Shortle.
I don't usually prepare something for these meetings, but this time I did, because I hate speaking in public. So I wanted my thoughts to come across clearly. We are elected by the voters of this town to represent their best interests. We're given the opportunity to speak freely, stating our own views and opinions on subjects that interest us, and that can become a double-edged sword. We can't allow the public to come to a meeting. John was just talking about public speaking. But we can't allow the public to come to a meeting expecting to speak without being put on the agenda. thus ensuring that there'll be no discussion about an individual's reputation or job performance without allowing them to respond in kind. I've had several conversations with members of this town that the board seems to allow personal opinions to be stated which do involve people's job performance and/or reputation without them being present to respond. The question has been how this board can hold a hard and fast line for the public not addressing topics openly unless posted, but does not hold itself accountable for the same procedures, and feel that it's covered simply by publicly stating that this is an individual's personal opinion. I don't have an answer for this question, but I don't think this practice serves the town as a whole. I think that if we're going to discuss someone's reputation or job performance, the person who is the subject of that discussion should be notified so the party in question can respond. This, after a number of discussions with people, is my humble opinion.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
And Vice Chair Childs.
Yeah, I just wanted to read something that's under the Select Board comments section of every single agenda we have. Comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the Select Board, do not necessarily reflect the views of anybody on the Select Board, and are the opinions and comments only of the individual member. And I assume you're talking about my statements last time about the sewer commissioner.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
That was the comment that was
Right.
brought up.
Well, his actions was in a taped public meeting. Right?
But
So this is.
if you were discussing his
Okay.
job performance, it has been stated that he should have been able to come and respond.
That's fine. I have no problem with that.
Okay.
I have no problem with that. So, carrying on. The WRP Festival was a smashing success. It was very cool. The only comments are that no alcohol is allowed to be served on school grounds, so next year we're probably going to have it at Players. But it's getting bigger, and people are very excited about, like other bands want to participate, which is great, and we might be able to get grants to pay the bands, which would be great. I wanted to wish a happy retirement to Gary and Sue from Personal Touch Laundry Service. They were here for 34 years, and they've closed shop as of August 31st. And today, the Santa Fe Burrito Grill opened, and I went there for dinner, and it's spectacular. It's really good. It's so great to have like I think better than Chipotle, like establishment in Rockland. So congratulations to the owner. His name's Hector, and everybody greets you with a smile, and it's really a refreshing new business. So I encourage everybody to give it a shot. And that's all I got.
All right, and I have nothing new. Everything that was shared, will be, will definitely be, considered and addressed at future meetings. And with that said, I will, item 8 is the executive session. Per MGL C30A 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiation position of the public body, 406 VFW Drive, Rockland. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session?
I have a motion not to reconvene.
Do I have a
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Select person Ellen,
Yes.
select person O'Laughlin,
Yes.
select person Shortle,
Yes.
Vice Chair Childs,
Yep.
and I agree, yes, so that's it.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.